After a grueling day at work, I stepped through the door, hoping for a warm meal and a moment of peace with my wife. Instead, I was greeted by silence, the scent of reheated takeout, and a cluttered dining table filled with shopping bags from high-end stores. My wife lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me. Frustration simmered as I asked, "What's for dinner?" Without looking up, she muttered, "I ordered something." This had become routine, home-cooked. Meals were a distant memory, and the house, once immaculate, had fallen into disarray. I was exhausted from working tirelessly to provide for us. Yet she seemed indifferent, living comfortably off my efforts. That night, I confronted her. "We need to talk," I said cautiously. She rolled her eyes. "I didn't marry you to be your maid," she snapped. Her words stung. This wasn't the woman I had married, the one who once cared about us. I pleaded for partnership, but she dismissed me, making it clear she had no intention of changing. Lying awake, anger replaced exhaustion. The next morning, I took action. Without an argument, I logged into our joint accounts and canceled her extra credit cards, leaving her with only one, strictly limited. It wasn't revenge, it was a boundary. When she discovered it, she was furious. "You're punishing me?" she demanded. "No," I said firmly. "I'm setting limits. If you won't contribute to this relationship, you'll have to start contributing financially." Her tantrums escalated, but I held my ground. She tried guilt-tripping me, painting herself as the victim to her friends, but I no longer cared. For the first time, I was reclaiming my dignity. Reality hit her fast. Declined payments, missed spa appointments, canceled shopping sprees. I watched as she scrambled to adjust, suddenly forced to live within limits. It was almost comical. Each passing day made one thing clearer. She wasn't just neglecting the house, she was neglecting us. And if she refused to change, maybe it was time I did. She deleted my message without responding. When her friends invited her out for their usual lavish brunches, she suddenly had excuses, feeling under the weather or too busy at home. But I knew better. Without my financial support, she couldn't keep up with their lifestyles, and it was starting to isolate her. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the table, staring at her phone. Her nails, usually manicured to perfection, were chipped. Her makeup-free face looked tired, almost defeated. I poured myself a glass of water, waiting for her to speak first. "I'm doing everything I can to make this work," she said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you're making it impossible." I leaned against the counter, exhaling, slowly before answering. "Making what work? Your lifestyle? The one I've been single-handedly funding while you refuse to lift a finger?" Her head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "You're being cruel." "Cruel?" I set my glass down, my patience thinning. "Cruel is expecting me to carry the weight of this. Marriage while you sit back and do nothing. Cruel is disrespecting the effort I put in every day just to keep a roof over our heads. Cruel is pretending you're a victim when all I've ever asked for is basic partnership." She flinched at my words, but didn't respond. For the first time, I saw something in her expression, genuine doubt. Doubt in her choices, in the way she had treated me, in herself. Over the following days, the shift in her demeanor became more apparent. She stopped complaining as much, though the silence between us grew heavier. Once I even caught her trying to clean the living room, though her efforts were half-hearted at best. But it wasn't the work itself that mattered. It was the way she moved, the hesitation in her actions, like she didn't know how to make things right. Her friends started noticing too. One of them called while she was out, her voice laced with concern. "Is everything okay with her? She's been so distant lately." I didn't have the heart or the patience to explain. "She's fine," I said, ending the call quickly. But she wasn't fine, and we both knew it. She was beginning to see that the world she had built for herself, a world of comfort and convenience, funded entirely by me, was crumbling. And for the first time in years, she had no one to lean on. One evening, as we sat across from each other at the dinner table, eating a simple meal I had made, she broke the silence. "I've been thinking," she said hesitantly. "Maybe I haven't been fair to you." Her words were a small crack in the wall she had built around herself. But they came too late. I looked at her, waiting for more, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she picked at her plate, her shoulders slumping under the weight of her own admission. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence between us spoke volumes. She was starting to understand the gravity of her actions, or lack thereof, but the damage was already done, and I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. After that night, things didn't change as much as I had hoped. She didn't fully return to her old habits, but her efforts to make amends felt half-hearted at best. She would tidy up here and there, make gestures that seemed more for show than substance, and occasionally offer a comment that hinted at remorse. But it wasn't enough. Not for the years of neglect and entitlement I had endured, and frankly, my patience for her attempts was long gone. One evening, about a week later, she approached me as I sat in the living room reviewing emails. Her face was softer than I'd seen in months, almost vulnerable. She hesitated in the doorway, gripping the edge of the frame like she needed it to steady herself. For a moment, I thought she might actually have something meaningful to say. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice quiet, almost trembling. I set my laptop aside and gestured for her to sit. She perched on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands like she was afraid they might betray her. "I've been thinking," she began, eyes fixed on the carpet, "about everything you said, about how I've been treating you. And you're right. I haven't been fair to you." I stayed silent, watching her struggle to find the words. "I guess I just—" She stopped herself, taking a deep breath before continuing. "I got comfortable. Too comfortable. I took you for granted, and I didn't realize how much it was hurting you." She looked up then, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "I know I've made mistakes, big ones, but I don't want to lose you. I want to fix this. I'll do better. I promise." Her words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. For the first time in years, she sounded sincere. And maybe a part of me wanted to believe her. But the bigger part, the part that had endured, her indifference, her entitlement, her blatant disregard for our partnership, couldn't be swayed by words alone. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "I hear what you're saying," I began carefully, "and I appreciate that you're finally acknowledging the damage you've done. But this isn't something you can just fix with an apology or a promise. The trust, the respect, it's gone, and I don't think we can get it back." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might break down completely, but instead, she straightened her back, her expression shifting from sorrow to desperation. "I can change," she insisted. "I'll do whatever it takes. Please, just give me a chance." I shook my head, the weight of my decision settling over me like a heavy blanket. "You've had chances, more than I can count, and every time you chose yourself over us. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep hoping for something that isn't there." She reached out, gripping my hand like she was clinging to something, slipping away. "Please," she whispered. "I love you." I pulled my hand back, gently, but firmly. "I needed your love when it mattered. When I came home exhausted and just wanted a partner. When I asked for help and you dismissed me. Love isn't enough anymore. Not after everything." Her tears finally fell, streaming silently down her cheeks. I didn't feel satisfaction or vindication, just a deep, weary sadness. This wasn't how I wanted things to end, but it was the only way forward. After that night, the house fell into a silence that felt more oppressive than peaceful. She kept her distance, retreating to the guest room. No more pleas. No more empty promises. It was as if she had finally accepted what I'd been trying to tell her, that the bridge between us was burned, and there was no rebuilding it. One Saturday morning, I woke up early, the weight of my decision heavy but resolute. It was time to end this chapter of my life. I grabbed a roll of garbage bags and started packing her things: clothes, designer handbags, shoes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Each item felt like shedding a layer of weight I had carried for years. By the time she woke up, I had almost finished. She walked into the living room, rubbing her eyes, and froze when she saw the bags lined up by the door. "What the hell is this?" she demanded. "This is me moving on," I said calmly, and for the first time in years I truly felt free.